Is A.J. Foyt the greatest driver? Wow, what a question. I would say of his era, he was absolutely one of the greatest drivers.
Who else?
I mean, you got Fangio back then. I mean, you got Dan Gurney. Let's see, A.J. Foyt, of course, drove everything. How about Mario Andretti? You know, F1 World Championship. He's sprint cars, Indy cars, stock cars, endurance cars. I mean, there's so many people. Tom Christensen, 7-time winner of the 24 Hours of Daytona. Hamilton, you know, 7-time world champion. There's a lot of really, really great drivers out there, but definitely for his era, A.J. Foyt was one of the best because he drove everything. He drove sprint cars. He drove stock cars. He drove Indy cars. He won 24 Hours of Daytona. I mean, the guy could jump in anything and be quick. So yeah, he's definitely one of the greatest drivers. I would put him in that category. But you guys can go. Parnelli Jones comes up. Hey, I worked with Parnelli Jones in the Saline program. We had Parnelli Jones and George Fulmer in the third car. Sometime I'll tell you some stories. I can tell you that those guys are definitely cut out of a different piece of cloth when it comes to racing. And that they're pretty interesting to work with.
There's some more there. Do you see that, Mario?
And actually, you know, Mario, I mean, he world champion, Indy cars, stock cars, sprint cars. And back then, all those drivers drove everything. They weren't just an IndyCar driver or a stock car driver. They drove everything. Drivers today don't do that. So in a way, those older drivers are greater in their overall ability to do things.
AJ, you keep reading.
Dan Gurney, Danny Gurney and AJ, it's not up here, won the 24 Hours of Daytona. Let's see who else we have. Mario Parnelli, worked with him. I'll kind of move on. But
well, Ken Miles, I think you can't.
Oh yeah, Ken Miles. God, you can't forget Ken Miles. I mean, Ken Miles was the guy back in the Shelby days. I mean, he's the guy that made all those cars work. He could drive them, he could engineer them, he could do everything. I mean, he was an amazing driver, an amazing engineer. So, I mean, just keep setting in who you think, and what we'll do, we'll compile a list, and next week we'll tell you how many people thought which on a list. So, send in your favorite drivers. Hey, you can enter this contest more than once. So, but the second half of it, this is interesting. The second half of Carl Wirtz's question is Smokey Unit the greatest auto mind? I would say for his time, yes, absolutely yes. The guy was amazing. The things that he did with cars, actually, you know, I knew Smokey Unick. He used to call me Brownie, and that's a name I totally detest, but he is the only person in the world I let him call me Brownie. So, but he, you know, what a guy he was. And he built like a 7/8 size NASCAR, and nobody could figure out why it was different until I started measuring it. I mean, yeah, he was for his time, he was an incredible automotive mind. So if you guys think of anybody else, send them in. We'll run another contest for who's the greatest automotive mind. Don't forget, Roger Penske. When it comes to like a mind, the guy's got it all. Okay, last week we kind of talked about great drivers, and we had some more come in that were mentions. Mario Andretti, everybody knows he's great. Schumacher, I mean, what can you say? I mean, how many time world champion was he? He just dominated. And then Ayrton Senna. I don't know if any of you guys are old enough to have ever seen Ayrton Senna race, but my God. The ones that stick out in my mind was in the race. I think it may have been in Sao Paulo in the downpour rain. And basically, he passed everybody, just flew past everybody. He was on a mission. And then, of course, nobody can forget his qualifying at Monaco that one year. It's like he was not human, because what he did for qualifying at that point, people said couldn't be done. Anyway, then we also got Ken Miles. For us Ford guys, Ken Miles was the man when it comes to developing cars, the Cobras, the GT40s. He was, unfortunately, we lost him too soon. Scott Pruitt, another great driver. I worked with him for a couple races in the Saline program, endurance racing. Amazing guy. He was pretty young back then. In '87, he came up to be an extra driver at Mosport for the 24-hour race. And he had commitments during the day on Saturday, and he flew in. He got there Saturday night, and he jumped in the car in the dark, in the rain, a car he'd never been in before. I think 4 or 5 laps, he was right on pace. It's a pretty amazing guy. And of course, my personal favorite, Jimmy Clark, my boyhood hero, fellow Scotsman. He was, if you don't know much about Jimmy Clark, look him up. He was an amazing driver. Unfortunately, another guy that, we lost too soon. But yeah, it's because of him I got into all this stuff, because I was at Watkins Glen for the U.S. Grand Prix the year that he won the U.S. Grand Prix, which was like, well, I was over the moon. So there's some other favorites. If you think some more, just go ahead and send them in. We'll talk about them next week. And then Brian West on the Smoky Unit thing, Brian West said that he was the best at rules interpretation. And I have to totally agree, because he was one of my inspirations. In racing, you're always trying to find the edge. I mean, everybody's going to win, and if you can find just a teeny bit edge, that gives you an edge. And he was really good at rules interpretation, and it's something that really stuck with me. The other thing, the other guy that was really indulged in my head on the rules interpretation was Pete Brock. The 510 Datsuns, back then they were Datsuns in Trans Am. And it's kind of interesting. They had a problem with not getting enough oil to the valve train. They were burning up valve train. And by the rules, they could not modify the engine to get more oil to the valve train. Solution: he took a copper wire or copper tube, wound it a couple times off of out of the block, wound it a couple times, and put it into the cylinder head, right into the rocker, so it oil. And people said you can't do that. Well, he pulled out the rule book, and it said that you can have as many oil coolers as you want in any location. So his thing was, well, is the oil cooler after it goes into the engine here, then it comes out there. So his overhead oiling was an oil cooler. So those two guys, kind of really kind of had an impact on me, because I'm really, really good at doing the rules thing.